The
Business
Oddcast.
Hello and welcome to another Business Oddcast. I am your host, Stuart Morrison, and this is my co-host,
Hannah Logan.
fantastic Hannah, episode 24. Do you think we'd ever make 24?
Just no, it was like a dream, wasn't it, Stuart? Like, it looks so far away, and yet here we are.
Top 1% of podcasts.
We're basically absolutely
For
awesome.
anyone's going, well, how are you measuring that? Well, statistically speaking, 99% of podcasts never make it past episode 21, and we're at 24. So I consider that. I consider
Hashtag
that
winning.
Hashtag life goals.
And it doesn't feel, does it? Like, it doesn't feel like. Well, it's a good sign that we really enjoy it, because it doesn't feel like, oh, we dragged ourselves to episode 24, wading through the treacle that was 0 to 23.
If there were long silences between, just us staring into space.
Crying.
And thank you for joining us through this journey. Thank you for joining in and sending all your best wishes and insights and thoughts and all of the lovely things that you've said. Because Hannah and I, we did this to share, to be a part of a community, to understand, what you're going through. So anyone who's given us any feedback or said anything nice or encouraged us or in any way, shape or form given us a thumbs up, thank you very much. And we will continue. Please continue to follow us, like, subscribe and do all that lovely stuff. Anyway, Hannah, what is the topic this week?
Topic of the week.
Right, Stuart, the topic of this week. Oh, this is one of my favourites. I know I say this every week and it annoys me as soon as I say it, but I think, just when I think they can't get better, we get to the next episode, and they invariably do. So
Constantly improving.
Oh, always. So the topic this week is delegation for control freaks and the overwhelmed. So the horrible, the D dangerous
word.
D word.
The dangerous D word.
So, okay. So, Stuart, delegation sounds in theory like a rather sensible idea, doesn't it? But actually, I would argue that in practice, it can be, for me personally, completely terrifying, and often is for neurodivergent people in general, and people in general, no doubt. But I think we're told, aren't we, that you can't do everything yourself. It feels very logical. Just outsource it, Stuart. It's not a problem. Just outsource it. Just let go and trust other people. Trust. Okay.
That's not had good outcomes.
I've had
in the
51
past.
years of realising that that's quite something I'm not very good at handing
There's a
over.
reason why I do it all myself.
There is a reason. But, so often when we try and delegate, we kind of, we come up and butting up against things like perfectionism, the fears of things being done wrong. Don't do it wrong.
Don't do it wrong.
Loss of control. God, I could go on, and we're gonna tap into a lot of this during this episode.
Yes.
We're exploring delegation, because it isn't about handing everything over. It's about finding safer, kinder ways to stop having to do everything alone on your own with just your own self.
I can't wait to jump into this because it was one of the hardest lessons to learn when I first started being self-employed. In actual fact, the early experiences I had as self-employment nearly broke me and led me to realise you just can't do it all on your own.
No, you really can't. And here's, let's look at some of the reasons why it can feel so difficult, so hard for us folk. You've touched on it a minute ago, really, but past experiences of being misunderstood. If you're looking to delegate, I can't speak. Delegate what? Delegate, Hannah. It's not a hard word. Fear of things not being done the way that we need them to be done, being done incorrectly. Again, I touched on it, but the loss of control. I think control for a lot of us is a real issue, and again, that will be based on, past experiences of when we've entrusted other people, or we've relinquished some of that control. It's quite possibly ended fairly badly. So delegation can, because of all of that, delegation can trigger anxiety for us, not that sense of relief that other people can delegate, like, can you do this for me, Stuart? There you go. I'll never think about it again. That doesn't happen. In fact, it does when if you did something for me, I'd be like, yeah, because you're on my wavelength. But anybody else, I'm like, I show it to them first in such detail. It's like when I'm trying to get my kids to do something. Here's how you do the washing, and they watch me do all of it. That's my delegation. Watch me do it. It doesn't work like that, does it?
The gnawing anxiety of handing something over and you're like, I have to say to myself, as long as this is 80% of what I need it to be, I'm going to have to be happy with that. And anything over that is a bonus. And having now worked with quite a few freelancers over the past 20 odd years, the ones that I still use are the ones whose judgment I trust. And ultimately that, I think, is what you're doing when you're delegating something. You're looking at somebody and going, do I trust your judgment to deliver this? And I'm sure we'll get into how you can get better outcomes for everybody. But when I first work with someone who I'm delegating to, oh God, I have to check in. Oh, I have to check in all the time. That gnawing anxiety of like, oh, I haven't heard from him in 3 days. Surely there's some questions. I know I would have a few. What about you? How do you feel about delegating?
Yeah, it's a hard no for me, Stuart. That's how I feel about delegating.
And that's the end of the Business Oddcast.
Yeah,
this
the
week.
end.
It's
Just
a
don't do
hard
it.
No.
Don't delegate. This has been brought to you today by Hannah and Stuart, and the lesson is do not touch the delegation. So we touched on control. So I think for most people, when they hear the word control, it gives negative connotations. It's a kind of, oh, they're a control freak. It means you're a nightmare and all of this kind of stuff. But we, or I can't speak for the entire neurodiverse fraternity, but I don't use it it's a survival strategy, right? It isn't a kind of I need to be in charge because I'm the best, although sometimes I am. But actually it's a survival strategy because it's kept me safe in the past, I mean, how do you feel about that control? I think you're probably less of a control freak than I am. A bit better seasoned at reining it in.
I'm a bit of an outcome freak. And that's harder in its own way. I mean, there's nothing easy about handing and delegating to somebody if you're not 100% sure that the process they're going to follow is going to give you the good outcomes. That's why I think working with small businesses can be challenging, because you have no metric of quality. And to a certain extent, you're learning how to work with each other. And like the process of doing the Oddcast, I started from a position of trust, and that has been rewarded, rather than starting from a position of huge skepticism and massive micromanagement, which doesn't lead to good outcomes. I'd rather somebody failed and then we both, as reasonable humans, analysed why the failure occurred. Was it failure in communication? Was it a failure in process? Was it a failure to understand what the actual task was, not the jobs that we get? Do you know what I mean? There's so much that can come out of a failure that you can use to, but it will depend on the other person's willingness to own their half of it.
Yeah.
And I find that makes a big difference. And I'm very much willing, if a customer delegates something to me, to learn from my mistake and say to them, if that wasn't how you wanted it, how do we provide that information in a way which gives you what you want?
Yeah.
I mean, just before this, we were talking about snagging with websites, and I use a fairly straightforward, simple process with a spreadsheet. And over the many, many years of doing it, it has proven to be the simplest, easiest and quickest way for the customer to communicate what they want changed. And it gives me 90% of the clarity I need, and the extra 10% if I just need to go back and say to them, could you just talk about this? Could you just explain that a bit more? They're never annoyed because it's such a light touch and you're working in their best interests. And I don't have customers that are like, well, I told you what to do. They will take time to go, oh no, I can see how you might, not understand that, to the point where sometimes you have to go back to a customer and say, how do you do this on your website, which seems counterintuitive, but I might be asking that because I am diagnosing something from the interface. They want something changed. Well, I can change it in various ways, but how are you doing this? And then they can give me the clarity I need. So I think delegation isn't just a one and done, because
No.
I will get onto this, but I think it's a collaborative agreement that you'll make your best efforts to genuinely and with goodwill, and you should be working with goodwill in business anyway, with
Ideally.
yeah. So I think delegation is one of those constructed parts of the business relationship that you get to over time with trust and the right processes and the right deadlines as well, because then that lets somebody prioritize their time. So I think those are the things that I have learned over the years. Just make sure that the other person has as much information as you have. I used to get support tickets from customers, and then I would pass through and translate it for my tech guys, because sometimes the customers are a little bit woolly. But in doing that, I have learned very good skills at how to brief and delegate to somebody else, because I've seen all the mistakes that, I want to say, lay people who aren't in the web world might make. And that is a lesson that you can use anywhere. What's your experience with delegation?
Well, actually being on when I think of delegation, it I get the kind of increased heartbeat, because I think of it as I've got to give something precious to somebody else and they're going to burn it. But actually, I did some work for you recently, and it was delegation the other way round, where I was helping you with some stuff on a website, and you delivered that to me so well that it was really clear what you needed from me. And actually you did include the brief, but you kind of said, this is what I need to do. You put it in this bit here, and that's it. And it was so clear that I got the sense that you were kind of like, that's going to be done the way it needs to be done, because you'd explained it so well. So for me, if I can master, that will be a goal right there. If I can master handing things over to people, whatever that might be, with that clarity that you gave me, then you're kind of handing it over like, don't drop it, feed it this, it'll stay alive. And you can be like, I can go out now for the evening and not worry about it. So do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what you did. And for me, it was wonderful, because I didn't have to be like, what about this bit? What about, it was so clear. And it felt like it worked both ways really well. And so I suppose, although I do really struggle with delegation, because I'm such a perfectionist. And when I've said about being a perfectionist before, I kind of, sometimes you get the sense that people think, she's saying she's perfect. It's that's not.
It's the opposite.
Yeah, it really is not saying, when you go for a job interview and they're like, what's your flaw? And you're like, well, I'm just so amazing that sometimes that's a bit of a limitation because I'm just too good. We're not saying that with perfectionism. It's that kind of, where those high standards can become a trap, because it's that fear of being judged or of things not being right, in inverted commas, the kind of all or nothing thinking. So actually, for me, it feels like if I delegate something to somebody else and I relinquish that control, then will it lower the standards of the output I need to achieve? Does that make sense?
Totally. What you're talking about is control as a survival strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even a personality flaw. It's like, I have to have this defense, otherwise bad outcomes. Stay, here be dragons. Steer clear. And I can totally understand that. I can totally align myself with that, having been that person. But early on in my entrepreneurial career, I tried to do everything myself. I thought to myself, if I know all the skills and I know how to do everything, then I won't have to rely on anyone. And to a certain extent, when my daughter was born, we had a phrase which was "Jaya, do by self," and that was because she just refused to relinquish to anyone that she couldn't do something, and it's kind of, yeah, the cherries don't fall far, do they? And that's on me. But how do you kind of step away from that kind of perfectionism and control freakery, and when you know that, oh my God, if this goes badly wrong, then it's going to go badly wrong, how do you cope with that kind of stepping away from that mindset but reducing the anxiety?
So I'm not going to lie, I'm in my infancy of stepping into the waters of delegation. The other day my daughter managed to wash her own bed sheets. And newsflash, she actually, she's very smart. She's 21. Managed to work out what buttons to press.
Cool.
The machine did not implode. No one died. No duvets died in the experience. And it taught me a really important lesson that, do you know what? That's crazy that I would even be worried about that. Worried is strong. I wasn't worried. And yet I thought, she won't do it properly, or she'll put not enough in the machine, and it will, if you put not enough, it becomes like a bowling ball in the machine and ruins all the calibration. But actually, I can't do everything.
No.
None of us can do everything. And I think for me, I've tried to do that for so long. And the reality is that, I'm now, people are having to step in and do various bits in the house as well, just because that's how it works, doesn't it? Otherwise you just implode.
Oh yeah. Especially when you've got adult children. It's like, come on, if you were living in your own house, you would have to put the dishwasher on more than once a day. So,
Step in, step up.
And our kids are very good, actually.
I remember years ago, and I might have shared this, I don't think I have on the podcast, but I've been married to my husband for 22 years, and I think it was only in the last couple of years that I discovered that he's an incredible cook.
Wow.
Up until that point, I never allowed him any. Don't get me wrong, I let him use the pots and pans, because that would be really brutal if I wasn't allowing him to use any of
They're
the.
my pots.
Get off. I think one day, and one day I kind of just, I don't know what, maybe I went out or something, and I came back and he'd made the most incredible spaghetti bolognese, and it hadn't required me sitting on his shoulder saying, "You're cutting the onions too big," because that's the level of control where I was at. And I know, without going into a deep dive, it's not, I'm not going to turn this into a therapy session, but I know for me...
Too late.
It's already happened. I know for me, that level of control was not about creating the perfect dinner. It was about, I need it this way, otherwise it won't be safe. You know what I mean? It comes from a history of a lifetime of whatever. But it's hard because, and this leads nicely onto the kind of next bit of topic, really. There's such a huge mental load that you carry if you're trying to do everything yourself. Even when the tasks are really small, it's trying to juggle all that stuff in your brain is exhausting. How do you kind of, well, you don't. You've discovered delegation, haven't you, Stu?
I have, and it was due to the over perfectionism. But also, it's sometimes you get surprising outcomes when you delegate, and as long as those outcomes are quality outcomes, I don't mean, oh my God, this is terrible, that's a surprise. I'm talking about, so a lot of the times I am engaging in a creative process. A website to a certain extent has some creativity around it, there's some sort of technical bits and what have you. And when I try and talk to the customer, I talk in terms of outcomes rather than concrete deliverables, because there are certain things with a low budget or with a time constraint where you haven't got time to put in all the rollovers and the flashy bits and pieces, and the SEO might have to backfill and be done at a later date. You're deploying something at speed to a budget with all of the known variables that you have in your head. So it's almost expectation management at the point where the customer is contracting you, so that when you delegate, you give the person that you're delegating to the freedom to use their experience and judgment. Obviously, you have to trust that. But again, why would you be delegating to someone you don't at least trust? And then having explained the outcome that you want, let them take the path of quickest route for themselves. Because especially if you've been working or you're working with somebody with years of experience, then I'm not dicking around when somebody gives me a job. I'm doing it as quickly as I possibly can, with as few touches as I possibly can, and going back to them as quick as I can, saying, is this it? Because if I've in any way, shape or form got anything wrong, they can quickly course correct me. And what I've found over the years is people don't mind you taking something back which needs a little bit of snagging or polishing or whatever, if you have set that expectation early. So when we build a website, we always say, the customer always says, oh, can we have it like in 4 to 8 weeks? I say, you can have the website in 4 to 8 weeks. We will then add 4 weeks of snagging, because you aren't going to be happy with absolutely 100% everything we do, just because you've seen it in your mind's eye in a slightly different way, and we might need to tweak things. So I think for me, overcoming the perfectionism is realizing that there isn't anything perfect. Even if you look at something that's highly polished and has spent a lot of time being delivered, like in engineering or whatever, they still have tolerances, and that tolerance is saying, as long as it's between these two measurements or deliverables, it's acceptable. And I think, yes, you can have those as really tight tolerances, but I think if you work with good customers over the time, you get a feeling of what they know as acceptable, and you can be less. I mean, if you want an exercise in perfectionism, sit on my shoulder and watch me trying to edit the Oddcast, beating myself up. That is like, why isn't this the BBC? Why haven't I got these to
One day, Stu. One day.
One day. Yes, definitely. So yeah, I think that perfectionism is it's almost like a milestone. You have to get there and realise nobody's going to be able to do it as good as you. No, but as long as they get 80 or 90% of it, and the customer doesn't care about the other 10%, only you are going to care about that 10%. It's great to have those high standards. My dad was a QA guy, so standards was in the house. He had a white coat.
Oh.
Yeah, he had a white coat. An engineer with a white coat is a
Nice.
formidable thing, because they will be coming up and then they'll be inspecting your work. And so the idea of having somebody check the work, and if that is the customer, then that's great. That's the customer, but that you build that into the relationship.
So confession time, Stuart. My confession time. Don't worry, I'm not going to grill you. A bit worried. So when this taps into my perfectionism, and I was proven wrong, and it was a really brilliant lesson for me, to be honest. So I remember you were labeling some files that we were doing. Maybe it was scripts, or I can't remember what it was. And when I first went into that folder, I'm not going to lie, I was like, what fresh hell is this? What fresh hell is this file naming? What is this? And then I think I said to you, like, this is really confusing my brain. The second that you explained it, it suddenly dropped into my brain like, oh, that's so much better than my really simplified, can never find what you need system. So actually, I guess it's still sort of delegation, but actually you were doing your bit, I was doing my bit. You educated me via default. And now I'm like 100% on board with that. Whereas when I looked at it at first, my brain was like, that's not how we do it. That's not the right way.
I have to be able to order them by alphabetical. Yeah.
But it was genius once you explained it. But, again, this comes back to kind of my brain was set in, this is how it works. And then you introduced, well, actually, this is how it works best for me. And then I took on board your idea, not through any. I was like, oh, yeah, that's a better way to do it.
Confession, it's not my idea.
It's stolen it off someone else.
I have literally, I saw somebody else doing it, and I was like, I'm doing that.
Yeah,
and
smart.
if you're wondering what it is, so there's this naming convention in coding where you start a file with a date. Now, the trouble is, if you put that date in the right way round, it doesn't matter whether you're English or American, day, month, day, year, when you order things, it's in the wrong order because it will do the smallest numbers first. So you just end up with this messy out of order thing. Now, if you do it alphabetically, again, you have no order other than the system itself remembering when you last modified it or when you last opened it and then organising it. But if you put the date in backwards, so the date of recording is the 14th of January 2026. So the file for today would be 2026, the year, no space, no forward slash, no hyphen, 2026 0114. All of the months are put in 2 characters, so anything lower than 10 is a 0. And the reason that I do that is I know that that's the definitive date for that file. Now, that might be a script, so today's script will be for today's episode, but it will be the date that it is broadcast, because then we can order the scripts by the date that they were broadcast. And in my head, when somebody showed me how to do this sort of stuff, I was just using an A to Z, 0 to 10 kind of filing system. But once I combined my filing system with that convention, I've not lost a file since. Because 9 times out of 10, you can go, oh, it's about a week ago. So you can search, and yes, you can search. Oh, good luck finding files on Windows, by the way. It's just a nightmare. Use a thing called Everything. It's just install it. It indexes everything, and it's quick, really quick. Like you, as you're typing, it's showing you the files with that name. It's amazing. Everything. Just ignore the Windows indexing. It's just,
We're not commissioned on this stuff, by the way.
and it's free. It's free. It's no commissions being paid. But again, over the years, you find these things out from the pain of not being able to find the ruddy files. So you do think there's a hidden mental load for doing everything yourself, or is it just par for the course and you suck it up?
So I think the hidden mental load is possibly a bit of I think I start to feel a bit annoyed if I'm doing everything. There's a real risk of me tipping into martyrdom. And this I know we're talking about business here, but also we've touched on kind of the delegation of, the household chores and just generally having to live with other humans. But yeah, I think there is a mental load, as a parent, as a person that carries a lot of this stuff in her brain. I do find that probably the most stressful part of my day to day is that mental load of trying to remember all the different bits. And actually, the listeners will know that I've not had amazing health over the last few months, year and a half, whatever it's been. And during that time, it's been quite magnificent in a way because I've had to offload all the stuff that I kind of gollemed, like my precious. I do all of this stuff. You'll all mess it up. I don't have a choice. So I'm like, yeah, you can do that. You can do that. And it's amazing because I don't have to think about like, will this get done? Will the cat biscuits get bought? Not my problem anymore. Thank you very much. So, you know what I mean? So there's definitely a mental load.
I do think and this is going to be horribly sexist, but I do think that for some relationships, the female partner, the caregiver, the child caregiver, does take a lot of mental load of what needs to happen and when, and how that's going to be delivered, and da 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 da. I'm not saying that it's bigger or less than the other partner. I'm just saying that running a household isn't a net zero cognitive load. That's all going on. Then you've got your spicy brain. Mine, for some reason, has been repeating the song by Ray, Where Is My Husband, on loop for 2 weeks. I can't stop it. It's like telephone background music, just like a Muzak version of this. It's interpreted in my head. And now you could laugh at that. That's funny. Yeah, it's hilarious. I've been dealing with it for years. It's been various songs over the years, But the problem with it is, you can't switch it off, and your brain is doing that whilst it's also trying to concentrate on it's literally like having it on in the headphones in your head, just over and over and over, and it could be just a section of it. And on top of that, you've got to get through your day and get through all the work and not make any mistakes. So I get the cognitive load thing.
If it's not just you that you're having to remember, and this is the same in business. If you're the boss but you're delegating stuff to other people, if you're not careful, then when you delegate and you hand that thing over, you need to, if you do it properly, it then should become their problem. Are they hitting the deadline? Is it going to be ready in time? Obviously, you're overseeing it as you're kind of project managing the whole thing. And yet, in an ideal world, you would not be worrying about whether they hit the deadline. They've got to own that bit of their, the bit that you've delegated needs to be the stuff that keeps you awake at night as well, right? So if you're not careful, I would argue that there's a way to avoid this kind of mental load of, by absolutely not doing it all yourself. But I say that like it's an easy thing that I have not quite mastered in the last 51 years. So, yeah.
That's what delegation should be about, is handing the task over to someone who is way better at doing this sort of stuff. Like when I handed the copywriting over to you, I was like, if I was handed this as a project myself, I would want to know these things, and this is what I'd want. But I'd also want enough constraint around what I'm doing to know that I'm doing the right things, but enough freedom that I can use my judgment, my creativity, and do all the things that I know that this particular thing, whatever it is that I'm being asked to do, needs to be done within the budget and the timescale. So I do think that it is a very much learnt behaviour, and the more you do it, yes, you're going to mess it up to start with. Yes, there's going to be stress to start with, but you didn't think it was going to be easy, did you?
Things very rarely are, Stuart, in my experience. Let's bring our good friend RSD into the mix of delegation.
Yes. For those who don't know, rejection sensitivity dysphoria.
He's such a good old pal of mine. I forget that not everybody understands what RSD is. I think I've experienced this myself. You get given something, and then, for me, I take on that mental load of, will they think I'm shit? I've been given clear instructions, and there's a little bit of in the back of my brain saying, Hannah, they wouldn't have asked you if they didn't think you could do this. And yet, there's still that fear of, not being good enough. You're expecting, and to be fair, to date, this has never happened, but it still haunts me. You're expecting them to go, what the hell did you do, you lunatic? And they don't. Normally they say, yeah, that's pretty much on point, just this and that, quick tweak here and there.
Another analogy for you.
Yeah.
So this is how I used to deal with it. Imagine you're in a car, race car, and you've got your foot flat on the accelerator, and you're hammering along, and you're told to rest, and you go, oh, okay, I'm going to rest. But instead of turning the engine off, getting out of the car, what you decide to do is to sit in the car with your foot flat on the accelerator, but get somebody to jack it up so the wheels aren't actually pushing you along. I'm having a restful time.
I am resting.
This is resting. I'll be ready to go the moment they just need me. And I have done that so many times over the years that I've taken a break, but in my head, I have not taken a break. All I have done is I've not even pushed pause. I have just stopped the physical manifestation of my thoughts. And that's, again, not good delegation, because it's a similar thing. When you hand the job over, you can't have then in your head, oh my God. You've got to go, I trust the person that I'm delegating this to do what I need to do, which is why it can be so hard. And sometimes it can feel like, well, I might as well just do it myself. By the time I've explained this is the one. By the time I've explained it to somebody else and they've done it wrong and we fixed it and I've done it anyway, I might as well do it myself. Has that thought occurred to you?
Oh my God, that's my entire life with my children. Oh, just hand it over. By the time you've messed it up, I'll just do it myself. So a few years back, and I'm confident this person won't be listening, I was building a website, and it was almost probably it was the final website that that got me to say I'm never doing websites again, and yet I'm currently immersed in a fabulous website with a very different client.
Client makes a
Yay!
difference.
Oh my gosh, huge difference. So this client in the past had delegated to me, assuming I knew more than they did about building websites, and I'd shown them proof that I did, and then they could not let go, and it was so hard because we were talking about copy on the website, and I was saying, well, this is statistically, and quoting the kind of word counts, and this will help you, and you don't want it to be too wordy, and all of that stuff that you know about it as well as I do. And they just kept arguing, and in the end a bit of my RSD kicked in, and in the end I found myself being a bit obnoxious, like, well, I'm the expert here, and unfortunately I lost the ability to say, look, if you want to, you trust me as the person that knows more than you do about it, just let me get on with it. But it wasn't great. It put me off websites at the time. And it also, to be honest, put me off those kinds of businesses. But actually it wasn't a business problem. It was a client problem. They couldn't let go. And I get it. I now get it in hindsight. At the time I felt, horribly affronted. And I let it get to me on a level that it really shouldn't have done.
No, I address it straight up.
Yeah.
Like this, you're trying to exert too much control here. What is it that you need to let me give you what you want?
They just couldn't.
Yeah, it can be difficult. And if they're struggling with it and you're struggling with it, then, two people who are not particularly good at it are not going to have good outcomes. But you see, this is why I think in business you need a mentor. You definitely need someone looking over your shoulder saying, you might want to try this or try that. You need somebody who's been through all the potholes so they can tell you where they are. Yeah,
absolutely that. Because otherwise it's just a lose-lose situation. That leads us nicely on to... So delegation isn't absolving yourself of all responsibility. You're still allowed preferences. If you hand it over, you're still allowed to say, please look after it carefully. You don't have to... It doesn't mean you stop caring. You're not saying, yeah, whatever, you do it. You're not dumping it.
No, it isn't abdication. It's a dance. And you're letting the other person lead for a while, which can feel very alien, especially for men. Go backwards and in high heels. What? It's odd. But you see, that's the point. The other side of that coin is you don't abdicate responsibility for it, but you don't just hand it over with lobbing a hand grenade with the pin out saying, oh, can you deal with that? And unfortunately, a lot of times people make up for their own shortcomings by doing that very thing. They abdicate responsibility to someone and then don't properly resource them, don't properly brief them.
Yeah.
And I've been on the other side of that, and it feels like you're an emotional punching bag.
Yeah.
Because every single time you go back to them and you say, well, yeah, and ask all the questions and they get defensive, you just feel like I'm failing here, when it's actually, no, the situation is bad. You're trying to do the best. And if the other person isn't willing to help you, it's like having a partner who's not dancing. So you're just basically lifting them up,
carrying them around.
That's not going to win any awards.
No, absolutely not.
Do you think that getting good at delegating in life will help you delegate in business and vice versa? Well,
I kind of touched on it a bit when I was ranting on about my kids and the washing machine. I think it's a good starting point. I think if you can hand over the way that... I haven't mastered this yet, Steve, husband, if you're listening. If you can hand over the way that the dishwasher is stacked without, as I do, waiting till no one's watching and then redoing it, then I think that, because at that point, hopefully, or it's certainly in my situation, you're kind of... That's a really safe place, isn't it, to kind of test the waters on delegation, because the worst that will happen is your kid will say, oh my God, stop being a control freak, but you're not practicing. It's almost like a practicing arena, isn't it? The safety of your own home. You can start delegating the stuff that doesn't hugely matter. And then when you've mastered it there, I'm thinking as I'm saying this, because I'm going to do this I'm going to try and do this in my own life.
Everything that you can do to practice and exercise the mental muscle, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I discovered the other day I'm really bad at asking for help without feeling some kind of shame, like, oh, don't, why you... Either it's the shame that person's going to think, bloody hell, Hannah keeps asking for help. I never really ask for help, so it won't happen very often. Or some kind of, I should be able to do it myself, But actually, delegating is fundamentally asking for help. Even in a business sense, it's not an asking like I can't do it. It's an evaluation of, is my time best spent doing this? Is there somebody else out there that can do it better?
That's the only question to ask, because the only way to grow your business, you only have a finite amount of time. So if you're doing everything yourself, the only way out of that is to get other people to do the bits. I always felt guilty. There was a huge amount of guilt. It was like, I should be a better coder. I should learn how to code. Coding's where it's at, and blah, blah, blah. And then I gave myself permission to not have that skill.
I like it.
And
took it off your armoury.
I did. It was like, I know enough that if there's a problem, I can delve into the code, and I'm not reading a foreign language. I can literally read through the code and go, oh, that bit does that, that bit does that. But my brain just can't remember syntax.
Yeah.
And it can't remember... I mean, I can deal with the logic and all the rest of it, but it's just like, oh, how do you write that? And I have to go and remember how the code's written. So imagine if you're writing something in English and you didn't know all of the words or the sentence structure, and you had to keep going and referring to a resource because your brain, it was that. And so I realised that I was a suboptimal coder, always was going to be. There's always going to be people who are miles better, like just miles better. So why not take advantage of their skills? And guess what? They love doing it. Whereas mine was more of a, I did it because I couldn't bear to try and explain what I was trying to achieve until I actually took time to explain what I wanted to achieve. And the person came back and it was 10 times better than I would have done it if it was me. I was like, yeah, this has got win all over it. I found somebody who's better at this than I am. And
it's not that better could be quite simply time efficient. Not that you're taking too long, but that their skill set means they can get it done in a better time frame. You might take you 2 hours, it might take them an hour. And that, when it comes to business and time equals money and stuff, is completely integral. So, Stuart, have you got any examples of when delegation goes wrong?
I'm just like flicking through the Rolodex of horrible
pictures
moments.
of you crying in your brain.
Oh dear. Yes, I have. I think the best lessons that you can learn in business are when it goes wrong, because you learn two things. One, you learn how you respond, and as I've aged, it's way less emotionally. Way less. It's just like, I now accept that my job, and I can't believe that I didn't realise this much earlier, my job is to solve all the problems. All of the problems. Every problem that lands on my desk. Now, that doesn't mean to say that I necessarily have to fix the problem. It means I need to know how to fix the problem. And if that means involving somebody else, and that's the difference, isn't it? Knowing how to do something and doing that thing yourself, entirely different. You know how to do something, you can make a judgment call as to whether or not you need to do it. If I hand this off to so-and-so, it's going to take them a week. The customer needs it done tomorrow. So I have a contingency. I know that if in the worst comes situation, if I have to apply myself, I could probably fix any of the problems that the customer has with their website. Time-wise, though, 4 hours of my time fixing it versus 1 hour of my best coder, I'd rather wait an extra day and then say to my customer, if you just don't mind waiting, we've got a bit of a backlog. And because I've done the previous work before about getting the right customers, I never have a customer coming to me, well, that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
Because we've got service level agreements and blah, 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 and contracts and stuff. But when it goes badly wrong, it's usually because I have failed to explain some fundamental element in and around it. Which is why I'm blunt about things nowadays. What's your budget? What's your time scale? Are you being reasonable? If you don't understand those things, let me help you get to a point where we can figure out what your time scale and your budget is. I can do most things. It will depend on timescale and budget, though. And that's what I've realised early on. A firm hand by saying this is the way it needs to be done if you need me to do it, and I will do it in the way that I know how. If they want someone else to do it, different budget, different timescale, there's fine, crack on. But if you need me to do it, this is what I'm going to need, and put my responsibilities. So all of those early disasters of failing to get payments, having rows with customers because they haven't explicitly read the contract. So when they go, but you didn't do so and so, yeah, no, that wasn't as part of the contract. Yeah, but I told you. Yeah, but when I put the quote together, I specifically excluded that. You didn't see that. Do you know what I mean? And it's nowadays, I don't want anyone to get to the end of the project and go, but hang on a minute, because that just leads to slow payment, arguments, additional hours. I'd rather have all those
Pain
conversations.
and misery.
Yeah, I'd rather have all those conversations up early. And the people I work with now, I don't put somebody, and this will include yourself, I don't put somebody in a critical path who's untested. So the work that I had you do could have been delivered, over an extended timescale if it needed to. I was more interested in the quality of the work, and the customer signed off on it, but yet still hasn't given us the permission to publish it yet.
That is, yeah. Okay.
I know it's frustrating, but at no point did any of what you were doing impact on the successful delivery and payment from the customer, and that was all I was caring about. Because as we've spoken about many times on the Oddcast, it's about being able to run your business with the energy that you have.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when you're delegating to someone, you have to recognise that actually I'm doing this because I need my energy to do other things.
Yeah. That
for me is the key to it.
Yeah. And
I could do it. I'll burn myself out.
Yeah.
Not going to.
And it's that self-preservation, isn't it? I remember when I was doing that bit of work, I was blown away. And it's because you get all this, right? Clearly, we're co-hosts. You get all this in your brain. And I knew that it would be a good experience. But one of the first things you said, because you're so aware of the way that my brain works too, was this does not need to be done today, tomorrow. You got a couple of... You were really... You must have read my mind and known that I'd have gone into, oh God, I better do it now. And you immediately calmed that panic. Yeah. And so actually it was a really nice... It was work that I could do easily, and yet it didn't have for me any of that pressure.
But you'd already passed the quality test. I already knew that the work was going to be good. I just needed to know we could work together. And there's no point in saying to somebody that you're working to for the first time, I need this tomorrow. If anybody says that to me, who's a new customer, we need this in a week, I'm not the guy for you.
Yeah.
We have a production schedule, and if you try and break that, I will break, and I am not breaking myself ever again because somebody else has an emergency that they have failed to plan for. Nobody needs an emergency website. I'm sorry, they don't. I once said to a builder friend of ours, hi Gary, if you're listening, I went up to him and said, Gary, I've got an emergency patio I need. And he looked at me and said, nobody ever needs an emergency patio, Stuart.
Unless there's a body underneath it.
Well, he said, unless you're trying to get rid of a
Did
body.
he? No. Sorry, I spoiled the punchline on that.
Perfect.
Oh.
It's very obvious, but it's there. And to his absolute credit, he delivered. I had given him 10 days to do a 3-week job, basically. And he said, well, we're going to have to... The fact that I'd already prepared the ground helped. But the point was, I should have involved him at the point where I decided that I wanted a patio, not at the point where I dug the hole out and laid the foundation and then said, right, I now need to go and find somebody who can delay a patio in 10 days.
Before any of my family members fall into this hole in the...
So I think that a lot of the times I struggle to share enough detail in the past. Think of it as like hoarding control. If I know everything and everybody just gets the little bit that they need, and I've realised that is a really poor strategy because you're not giving people the chance to give them the joined up thinking. So nowadays, when a customer sends me their email with all of the information in it, I just share that with my team. This is what the customer has said. and get them to say to me, we need to know this, we need to know that, because I trust their judgment. Or I will suggest, they don't seem to have asked this, this and this, and I'm going to go back to them. What else do you think I should go back to them with? Anything that you think that you'll need to know? And I find that collaborative approach of going to somebody really early when you want to delegate to them and say, look, I don't even know if I'm going to delegate to you, but if I did, this is what I've got, what more do you need, and what's the timescale and cost? And 9 times out of 10, that's how we get briefed. People come to us and say, look, I'm not sure if you can do this, but this is what I've got. What can you help us with here? And at that point, you're like just into project management mode of like, oh, that's all right. Oh, okay. The customer turns up and wants a house built, and they've turned up with some wallpaper, a garage door, some windows, and like
some random.
Could you put all this together and make a house? And as long as they're prepared to work with you, you can help most people. But again, it comes back to expectations and communication.
Yeah. I mean, I've still got some teenage trauma from. I was never a team player, Stuart. I know you'll find that very hard to believe.
Yeah, same here though.
And it wasn't, I won't go over the same points, but it wasn't because I thought I was the best for the job. But I remember it was our leavers ball when we were, whatever age we were at the end of secondary school, 16 or something.
Snogging behind the touch
licking
shop.
each other's faces behind the curtains. Or was that just me? Sorry if you're the person that got licked, if you're out there.
Whether they wanted it or not.
Yeah, just randomly, like some creepy cat. So a few of us, we all got, I think somebody did some stand-up comedy and and a group of us, maybe about 6 people, were assigned some kind of weird dance thing. And I said, I know quite a bit about this stuff, so, I'm happy to lead on this. I wasn't leading, I was just brutal. I was like, can you stand over there? And then one of them would say, well, what about if we try like this? But no, I've told you what to do. And in the end, I was getting so angry. And the reality is, I won't, dig up too much of that trauma. I've managed to put it to bed after many sessions of therapy. But the reality is, I've learned over the years, and it's been a slow process, that actually when you let other people get involved, surprise, you you invariably will get loads of other fabulous, if you pick the right people, perspectives. And the end result will almost certainly end up better or more time efficient, because we're always learning, aren't we? If we don't let other people's ideas in, then we're just kind of assuming that we know best on everything, and that's not the reality. Or not for me.
There are some circumstances where you need people to do exactly what you're asking them to do, but in the wider sense, yes, no. If you've got a team that you trust, you should be able to say to them, look, this is what we're trying to achieve. Let's work on it together. And in the creative field, I think this has perhaps been partially my saviour. In the creative field, theatre, the arts, stand-up, comedy, writing, I have had some amazing people that I've worked with over the years who have shared with me their insights and expertise, and I've been able to, like a smorgasbord, go, that works for me. I'll have some of that as well. But you see, a lot of the people in those industries with those skill sets are probably, part of the tribe, part of the clan, on the spectrum, whatever. And when you see somebody successfully navigating this crazy world, and you go, they're a little bit like me, and they seem to be successful when they do that. I'm having that. Pick a mix. That's my personality. It's full of pick a mix. If you boiled it down, there's just this rude, angry man, just like alone in a cupboard. Leave me alone. I'm doing it perfectly. Being a human.
Brilliant.
So I think that brings us neatly onto defining success. Do you think less control and more capacity is the way forward, or do you see it as not losing any control and just increasing capacity?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, I suppose it kind of, like you said, with the redefining, it comes down to how you're measuring that success. Because actually, if your ultimate goal is to manage your own energy and not come to the end of a project and cry in a corner and say, I'm never building a website again. Newsflash, future Hannah, you did in the end. Then, yeah. So I think it is about how you define that success. And for me, is it less control? Yeah, I think so. Because I think, and it's hard for me to do that, right? But I think if I have less control, as long as I'm kind of overseeing, I'm the project manager of the situation. If you're picking the right people, if you're picking the right clients, and you're delegating the bits that you can't do as well as somebody else could, or in the right time frames, then it's ultimately probably going to win. But it's that letting go, isn't it, as an ongoing strategy, really, not just sort of trying to Gollum everything that you've got.
It's all mine.
And progress, not that perfection. I mean, I like to think of my perfection as, oh God, she's going to say the superpower word, Stuart.
Oh, no.
Oh, Hannah, why? Why would you do that? There was an entire blog ranting about it that you wrote.
No, it's a skill set.
Yeah.
It's a skill set. It definitely is.
You can be a details person without letting that trip you up. And if it's perfectionism to the point where you're like the poor people that had to do the dance with me 1,000 years ago, then it's just like, Hannah, that you're never going to, it's not strictly, not that existed at the time, it's not strictly come dancing, Hannah, it's literally a 5-minute dance at the end of your school proms. So it's being able to understand that, you can be a details person, you can get something perfectly right on brief without letting that kind of perfectionism haunt you and make you take like hours longer than it's meant to and stuff.
I think it's perspective and being confident enough that the outcome will meet the expectation.
Yeah.
So I only see upside to delegation now. One, because I've got some great people around me who I know that when I delegate something to, like simple thing, sign, okay? I wanted the sign made. I sent it to my sign guy. He improved it and delivered it. He didn't ask me 1,000 questions. He didn't take 10 weeks. I just gave him my artwork and he took that and improved it. So I think for me, I couldn't live my life now unless I could successfully and skillfully delegate, which is really frustrating when you have to interact with organisations and businesses where you're asking them to try and do something for you within their processes, and it seems to be that they're unable to do this thing. So what are the takeaways then, Hannah? What do you think we've learned?
Yeah, what have we learned? Well, my key takeaways from this, because every day is a school day, I'm actually learning from our own podcast. Whilst perfectionism may well make you feel safe, it's also, you've got to weigh up that safety or that assumed feeling of safety with how exhausting it is. And that actually if you're delegating something, it doesn't mean you're lowering the standards. You're redefining those standards and you're taking off a load of pressure from yourself, which is hugely important. Managing, a lot of us really struggle with managing our energy, and it's incredibly important to delegate and block in your own safety zone of energy. And also, I'm listening to this one the most, you're allowed to ask for help, like in life in general, in business. Just ask for help. For goodness sake, if there's the one thing that you go away from today after you've listened to this or watched this and you think, oh, I'm not going to break myself by trying to do everything, I'm just going to ask for some help. You can go in gently, could you make me a cup of tea? Good luck with that if you've got a teenager, but yeah. So, yeah, ask for help.
Yeah, get in touch with us. Ask us for help. If you need, genuinely, if there's anybody out there who's listening to this and thinking, you're making some good points, I need to have a conversation, get in touch. Send us an email. Get that problem out into the world, and who knows, you may make some progress and breakthroughs. There may be some learnings that we can impart and share for your specific situation.
Yeah.
I think there's a few tips that I would share.
Yeah.
If are you done? Are you done with your takeaways?
Yeah, I'm done with my takeaways.
Fabulous.
Yeah, share your tips.
I think that you should delegate the outcome, but not the method. So tell the person clearly, unambiguously, what your expectation is and what your time scale is, and obviously agree what the remuneration is for that. But let them walk their own path. I have this if it's done 80% of the way, then that's okay.
Hmm.
I'll make sure that it gets there. If I get to 90%, happy days, I'm really using that contractor again. So, don't be so wed to the way that something is done that you lose sight of the actual outcome. And the actual outcome is you've saved yourself some time.
Yeah.
So learning how to delegate is actually a core skill in a small business. Like you said, be kind to yourself. Start with the least emotionally loaded task. I've outsourced in the past all sorts of bits and pieces over the years, but I keep the things close to me that I know are going to make a big difference, or I am really, really wed to. Like the layout, it has to be in a certain way. There has to be a logical, structured order that the user is going to be using that website in, and so I want it done in a very specific way, because I need to justify to the customer, your marketing goals were X, Y, or Z, which is why we built it in the way we built it. Don't get bogged down in perfectionism. There is that is a hiding to nothing. Absolutely. Pain, emotional turmoil, and guess what? It's infinite. It never ends, because it doesn't matter how good you get it, you'll spot something and you'll go, oh, I could have made it better. That's brilliant that you spotted that, but don't obsess about it. Make it better next time. Remember that for next time. Stick it in your brain.
Yeah. Always improving.
Don't think that because delegation failed once that's delegation. It probably means you either chose the wrong person to delegate it to, or didn't have the right processes or systems in place for you and the client to be able to successfully achieve the outcome. Learn the lesson, improve. It's a great lesson to learn. No one's going to die. No one's going to get arrested. It's a small business.
Just make sure you've got insurance, liability insurance.
Yes.
I've got that.
Yes.
Just in case.
And if like you're spiraling a bit and burnout feels like it's threatening, step back from it. Do what you can to put the fires out, and then step back from it. Reevaluate, reassess. Go for a walk around the block. Take a deep breath. Go for a swim. Do whatever it is that you do that de-stresses you and allows you to come back with a fresh mind. I would suggest that there's a lot that can be taken from learning how to successfully delegate. And if you're struggling with that, then let us know. Get in touch. What bits of it resonated? What bits of it were struggling to understand? Do you have any tips yourself? Any takeaways that you could give us? Be lovely to hear from you. Hannah, anything you want to share with our wonderful audience?
Well, I tell you what I could share, Stuart.
What's that?
The topic for next week.
What is the topic of the week? Hannah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, I'm not going to say this is a good one.
What's the topic for next week?
That's a given. It's the topic for next week is using AI the ultimate in ND masking.
Ooh, very up to date, very current.
Yeah, I know. Look at me being all trendy and young.
Oh, fantastic. So we'll be looking at use of AI in your small business.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about it. It's everywhere. We'll be looking at how you can use it perhaps to make up for some of those spicier traits or some of your harder to deal with tasks, problems and issues. So look forward to that one. That's fantastic. Well, thank you very much. As always, like, share, subscribe, do all those wonderful things. Get in touch. If you want to be a guest, let us know.
Yeah.
We have a link to a guest form. I'll stick that in the show notes that accompany this on the website. That's businessoddcast.com. Go there, sign up, join our newsletter list, and we will sporadically update you about things that are happening with the Oddcast. Don't worry, we won't spam you.
No.
We hate that. So do keep an eye on your inbox if you sign up, and we will see you next week. All the very best. Goodbye.
Bye. Step away from PAYE. Don't do it.